Hello and welcome back to the I-League qualifiers from the Southeast Asian region for I-League number 2. This is the best of 3 between Genysis and MVP.Hot6 as far as game 1 is concerned. MVP definitely impressed me with their execution of the Brewmaster and Tidehunter working around those cooldowns in game number 1. And as far as this draft is concerned, Genysis are going to start things off banning out that Brewmaster. Definitely warranted.
It wasn't the cleanest victory for MVP. Had a couple of bumps along the way, but you know what? They got there, and that's all what matters in the end. For Genysis, the dual lane mid and the Wraith King pick in general, I think, was probably the weakest part of their game. The Sankey got his Blink Dagger, and once he did, he made some pretty nice action happen around himself, but everything else from Genysis just wasn't quite there. They didn't have enough in order to bring down a farm TA. They didn't have enough to distract and kill off both the Brewmaster and the Tidehunter, take care of their ultimates. So MVP, they're going to respond to this Venge with the Tidehunter once again. I think this is just perfectly justifiable given the first game. Of course, Brewmaster no longer a pick, but if MVP play the Tide, well, hopefully with slightly better Ravages, then that's going to be just fine for them. Really, just the threat of Ravage is sometimes good enough to win you a couple fights.
It is. They'll follow things up with Scarth Mage, even though they have a defensive swap to deal with it. Genysis, Scarth Mage is still a decent pick. Just a lot of nuke damage, good in the laning stage, and offers a nice amount of control as well. One of the supports that's kind of fallen out of favor, but still always there in the current meta, and should work well for MVP.Hot6.
Yeah, so it's going to have one of the better answers for the Tidehunter on their own team, so that's always very nice to have. They should be looking for someone with a little bit of setup so that the Scarth Mage can actually land a Mystic Flare. Whether that's a Wraith King for themselves, that's a possibility. Going for a Sand King like Genysis went for in the last game, also pretty good, or a Shaker. Heroes along those lines should be the ideals for MVP, whereas for Genysis, with only Vengeful Spirit, no huge combination right now. They definitely don't want to go for Legion Commander. That's not what they want to do in this game. But you have options like Viper, Razor, Ogre Magi Band. You have some pretty powerful heroes available to you.
For sure. I think the Viper is probably the safest one to go for here for Genysis, and would leave them open if they wanted to go for it later on in the draft for a Drow Ranger.
Yeah, that would be pretty sweet if they just picked up a Viper and then tried to sneak in a Drow Ranger down the line for MVP. It might just be a draft to sneak up on them, and when that happens, if you're going up against Drow Ranger, you're probably just going to straight up lose, although that is pretty much the opposite of a Drow Ranger. Timbersaw is going to be picked up for the Genysis side. As far as Timbersaw pickup in general, you want to pick him up late so that you can have a better time up against fewer crowd control effects. Picking him up early makes you extremely vulnerable to that.
It does. I'm actually very surprised at this. I was expecting like Viper Puck for the second pick for Genysis if it was going to be a core. Timbersaw, as you've already said, kind of does thrive later on in the draft, and even with these first two picks, it doesn't look like the greatest of Timbersaw games. Sure, Tidehunter's a strength hero and Scarth Mage is really squishy and does fall quickly to the burst coming out from Timber, but they have decent tools to control him. That Ancient Steel in particular is very nasty when you're playing Timber.
If you jump in, you're going to be feeling pretty good. It's like, all right, it's time to kill things. Suddenly silence, and you can't really do much of anything. As far as the laning situation versus Tidehunter, Timbersaw does pretty decently should he land himself a 1 versus 1 situation, but Anchor Smash is still going to be hitting Timbersaw pretty hard. He has 0 base armor, reactive armor, going to be charged up fairly slowly if he's going to get into a man fight with Tidehunter. So in that situation, I don't think the Timbersaw is really the best hero for Genysis, though they're going to try to protect him with the Silencer ban and the Faceless Void ban. It's a necessity that they have to do right now just because Timbersaw is vulnerable so much to these two heroes. Silencer in particular, like, you can't deal with the Silencers, Timbersaw, until you get a BKB, and you really don't want to be getting a BKB until really late into the game.
For sure, and honestly, I'm not exactly sure what warrants this Timbersaw so early for Genysis. Would MVP.Hot6 really have banned it out? I don't think so. I think they could have gotten away with it in the second picking stage.
Yeah, I think they probably could have. So Genysis, I'm not really sure if there's any lineups that revolve around Timbersaw. It seems like a self-sufficient hero. Like, he will just do stuff on his own. Even if the team is feeding, Timbersaw will be able to make stuff happen. So picking up this Timbersaw so early kind of suspect, I would say, at this point in the game. For MVP, they're going to take out the Ember Spirit, much like they did in the last game. And then, well, it was also Ember Spirit Slark, I think, for their 2 bans in the second phase. This time they have the Skywrath Mage, so maybe they're going to be less inclined to do so. But those heroes are definitely pretty dangerous, and it would force them to have so much crowd control. Necrophos is also a worthy ban, I would say.
Yeah, another one of those heroes that warps the game, really annoying to play against, and Elder Titan has managed to squeak his way through the bans and is now going to be the 3rd pickup for MVP.Hot6. Comboing well with the Skywrath Mage, a whole lot of nuke damage that can come out from these two. With the maxed out Natural Order and maxed out Ancient Seal, Mystic Flare hits like a truck, and maybe even harder than that. Especially on targets that don't have the greatest of HP pools. Even the Timbersaw, who does get pretty tanky pretty quickly, is going to fall very fast. And MVP.Hot6, if they invest even further into this magic nuke combination with something like a Zeus, Genysis are just going to melt.
They could do that, or they could even go down the physical route. I mean, Tidehunter has his Gush, and though the Vengeful Spirit is currently on the Genysis side, gotta remember that Elder Titan does reduce all that armor of Genysis down to 0 once his aura is maxed out, so they will get synergy pretty much no matter what direction they want to go for. Genysis, they're going to grab the Dazzle, and I think that's fine. Knowing you're up against that much burst damage, you have a chance of protecting yourself, and it is a nice hero to have as a Timbersaw. You have more time in order to get either out of those fights or to dump the rest of your mana pool. But there will be a lot of damage coming out for MVP. It would not be surprised to see another pickup of the Templar Assassin in this game, just to have that extra synergy with minus armor.
Yeah. Dazzle, as far as heroes against Elder Titan, I think is one of the best ones with just defensive weaves as well. I think it's a warranted pick from Genysis, but it's going to be a Spectre for MVP.Hot6. A nice mix of physical as well as magical damage, but then again, Elder Titan isn't going to impact Desolate or the excuse me, Dispersion at all, since that is pure. It does still combo pretty well with what MVP.Hot6 have, and just the ability to keep a hero out split pushing, and being able to bring them in immediately if a team fight does break out with a Tidehunter Ravage is always a pretty useful tool to have at your disposal.
So MVP, they're going to need another hero that could fight pretty consistently early on. Elder Titan, I'm assuming, at this point is going to be played as a support, mostly because, well, he usually is, but if he was played as a core, then core Elder Titan, Spectre, Tidehunter, and I mean, that's fine for the late game, or for the mid-ish late game, but they will just get run over in the early stages of the game, as those heroes up against Timbersaw will be at the Timbersaw's mercy, and now Genysis is going to grab a Lycan. So they have quite a bit of mobility, and MVP, they have very, very few ways of locking these heroes down. Skywrath Mage has a silence, that's just not good enough.
Yeah, I'd like to see Puck contested in some way, shape, or form inside this next pick for either side, to be honest. It would fit pretty decently, but I think Hot6 definitely need some sort of lockdown or control inside these team fights to really make it work out for them. Yeah, as far as other heroes that could fit the bill, not exactly sure if they'd go for something super different. Let's see. Magnus is there, and they could go for it, but then again, that is very cooldown reliant. Queen of Pain's actually the ban out from Genysis.
I think heroes like Queen of Pain, Storm Spirit could be pretty good right now for MVP. First of all, they have that synergy with the minus magic resistance from Elder Titan and Skywrath Mage. Second of all, you need someone to start some fights so that Spectre can actually haunt in. A blinking Tidehunter is also a really good way of starting the fights, but he won't have that blink for a little while, so early game, Genysis will have the run of the game.
10 seconds
for MVP, it's obviously not going to be the Queen of Pain. They have a lot of time to decide who they actually do want. It has to be a mid lane hero, and right now they don't know the matchup. Viper is still in the pool, and that's probably the safest pick for them. It probably will be the safest pick for either of these two teams, honestly.
Yeah. For Genysis, with the Queen of Pain ban, maybe it's a mid Lycan as well, depending on what the matchup is. They do have that flexibility to decide whether or not they want to go for it too, since they do have last pick in this entire draft. MVP.Hot6, 30 seconds till we see what they actually end up landing on. Storm Spirit would be nice. It just depends on how much they expect Genysis to be split pushing. Timbersaw and Lycanthrope can put a lot of split pressure onto lanes, especially if Boots of Travel come out from the Timber. So might be a worthy pickup, and Orchid is another great way of controlling up that Timbersaw.
10 seconds to go.
Yeah, so I think that would be a great way of just starting some fights. Skywrath Mage can't always get there in time, but it is going to be that Zeus that you talked about previously. They have that minus magic resistance combination, and sometimes, though you may not have the crowd control effects, in order to deal with heroes, you just outright kill them. Weaver is the last pick for Genysis, is going to be yet another hero that is going to abuse MVP's lack of crowd control. So Zeus, as powerful as he is at dealing a lot of damage, he will have to get through quite a bit in order to just really get close enough to the enemies to do his damage. They do have some global power with Zeus and Spectre ultimates, but I don't really know if it's going to be enough. Genysis have so many elusive heroes. That being said, I did like their draft a lot more in the last game, and they ended up losing, so maybe MVP are just going to power through it.
Yeah, I think a lot of it does come down to the early lane stage and whether or not Tidehunter gets a Blink Dagger up at a decent timing, but their global potential is very threatening at the very least. A Zeus Ultimate and a Spectre, if they get farmed, can almost instantly bring down the two supports and force a time-lapse out of the Weaver and
10
maybe even
seconds to
BKBs.
go.
And that's really going to be the perfect scenario for MVP if they actually manage to make it happen. This burst combination for MVP is certainly going to be high, and Weaver, such a soft hero, is going to be vulnerable to that. Of course, Dazzle and Venge, just as soft, so it is possible that MVP just get off to an amazing start. That will have to rely on their supports in lane, and Scarith Mage is a hero that can do that. Elder Titan is a hero that can potentially do that, but only if he actually gets close enough to the enemies, and if he doesn't really want to get close to a Timbersaw or a Lycan, not going to happen. At least not going to be happy times for him, but we're going to see different lanes than what we expected, kind of similar to what we saw in the last game. The lanes are not quite what we would ordinarily see. Sunby up on top as the Tidehunter, perfectly reasonable. Raji looking to go towards the mid lane as the Spectre, with Dubu supporting as a Scarith Mage. Also got Jubei on the bottom lane as Zeus, and Nuts on the bottom lane as Elder Titan. Both of them have boots first, so they're pretty much ready to rumble down this bottom lane, but a dual lane mid instead of putting the Zeus mid. What do you think about this?
Not sure I like it, but then again, they are going up against a potential aggressive tri-lane, and it looks like that's how Genysis are going to lane this, with Nana playing on the Weaver, Quadruple A on the Venge, Bryant on the Dazzle. Mid lane Lycan, played by Vexus, isn't going to have a very fun time. The Scarith Mage can pretty much zone him out solo, and they'll probably have to commit a support of their own to deal with that, and even if they have both of the supports there, they can put pressure for sure onto the Spectre, but then again, can they secure the Lycanthrope farm? I'm not so sure about that. The top lane matchup is the Timbersaw versus the Tidehunter, which is a pretty interesting one to watch. Both heroes excel in melee versus melee matchups. With the reactive armor not being very useful in this lane, but Whirling Death being incredibly so up against the Tide, it's more or less a toss-up of who gets the better half of that exchange.
It is going to help Sunby a little bit because Tidehunter has double the regen of the Timbersaw, but it certainly can come to a point in the laning stage when Sunbi is just massively overpowered, and even though he will be able to regenerate any harassment, he will just outright die if he's forced to use any of that regeneration. So Sunbi, this top lane is definitely one that's worth keeping an eye on. For the mid lane, Genysis are going to shuffle their heroes around and have a dual lane there as well, with the Dazzle and the Lycan partnering up against the Spectre and the Skywrath Mage. Lycan is definitely more useful than the Spectre in this particular lane, being close quarters. Dispersion is better, but you don't want to be going for that. Desolate is probably not going to get that much value, and she overall has less damage than the Lycan, so Genysis, even though their Dazzle does less damage, maybe they're going to get more going either way. This is going to be one of those games where all lanes are going to be vulnerable, and we have to really keep our eyes open.
Yeah, and you also have the X Factor of Haunt to factor in this middle lane for both the Dazzle and the Lycanthrope. He is going to pop that Hound now for a little bit of extra secured CS inside the laning phase, but Spectre can't contest his farm. And the Scarith Mage has actually backed off and is looking for a stack.
Alright, so Raji being left all alone right now, and Scarith Mage is going to be able to stack up and get back to lane pretty quickly. With a 325 movement speed, you are able to do such things as far as clearing off the stack. MVP don't really have the best heroes right now. Sunbi really doesn't want to leave the lane in order to do that until he's forced out, and Andy really is doing a good enough job in order to force him out. Nuts, I suppose, can really do it really slowly with Spirit, but that's also something that you don't want to be doing. So stacking is an investment, and it's not going to pay off for much later in the game. But for right now, it looks like this Tidehunter and Spectre are doing the best, but everyone is, for the most part, doing even. They're actually keeping Vexus out a lot better than I really would expect. Dubu dumping out a couple of mana pools on this Lycan, forcing out some regen, though Lycan has Magic Stick, so not entirely sure if this is worth it.
for the most part, in bottom lane, Zeus has been able to get the CS, but Elder Titan's also getting a decent amount of levels, which is completely fine. Is also running the pulls for his team. Nuts is going to be able to have a good impact on this Elder Titan. He's getting over the hardest part of the heroes, just effectiveness in that laning stage. Can't put much pressure on Nana, but it's looking pretty good for both sides. Up and top, trading hits, Sunbi as well as Andy. Neither are going to die, but Tidehunter is taking the lesser half of that exchange. Actually, a Quelling Blade picked up by the Tide.
That's normally not an item that you see on Tidehunter being picked up ever, even up against Nature's Prophet. You don't really want to go for that item just because you're not really going to be farming that much. He has Dubu coming in to support, but with actually there's no Timber Chain, so it is actually possible that they get this kill if they play correctly. That is not playing correctly. They opened up way too early. And now Timbersaw should be just fine. Also has leveled up Timber Chain. Dubu's still going to put a lot of damage here. This Scarith Mage is going to be helpful, but these supports from Genysis is going to be a little bit more helpful. They have a complete surround right now, and with Magic Missile onto Sunbi, this is going to be first blood. My god, the damage. I thought it wasn't going to outright kill him, but shit, I guess Tidehunter down.
Yeah, with Whirling Death, it's very easy to underestimate that damage, especially on a hero that we're used to seeing be so tanky, but Tidehunter, Kraken Shell doesn't help you at all against that. It was pretty much just Magic Missile, Whirling Death, and he was gone. This is going to rotate all of the supports off of mid lane, leaving it to be a 1v1 in the favor of Spectre, actually, which is surprising me, at the very least. 18-5 compared to a modest 8-0 on Vexus.
Bottom lane. Nana's going to be diving both Nuts and Jubei. Already dropped them both very low. Geminate attack. We'll get the kill. And Jubei, unfortunately, with no bolt, is packing 2 points of arc lightning, but Nana's going to circle around with the salve now up, and Jubei's in also a lot of trouble. Nana with 1 shot, 2 shots, going to get himself a double kill. Weaver just destroying the Zeus and Elder Titan lane, despite all this burst damage. Here comes Dubu. He has no Ancient Seal, though, so there's actually no chance that he gets this kill, unless this Arcane Bolt does 200 damage, which it shouldn't, and it won't. That's going to be a nice 2 kill down towards the bottom lane of Genysis and MVP. They just got pretty much massively outplayed. This Zeus's build is really not a build that you want to be going for.
Yeah, I can't say that I agree with it either. The second point in Arc Lightning is okay in a mid lane situation where you just need that extra damage for CSing. But I don't know, Bolt is just too good to pass up, I think. The extra damage is very mana efficient, and also True Sight up against the Weaver could be significant in certain situations. So I don't know. I can't say I agree with it. That's going to be remedied now that he has the 1 pointed to it, however.
You gotta remember that Arc Lightning, every single time you cast it, though, you may be getting last hits. You're also pushing out the wave pretty substantially with each bounce hitting for just a little bit more. You're going to be giving Weaver a little bit more time and space in order to Shikuchi forward and mess with you. So this is putting Zeus in a more and more compromising position. It'll happen for the Weaver. It'll also have the same effect with the Lycan and Timbersaw. If you push in against them, they're going to have more time to run you down with their skills, and that just means you're going to be receiving more damage. So MVP, now their Zeus has protected farm, but Zeus really isn't the hero that you want to have protected farm. I guess this is fine since Raji's doing so well in the middle lane, but this is just such an awkward situation from MVP, especially since they now use their second set of dust, hitting absolutely no one. Nana's going to circle around, now is spotted by a sentry, but they can't do anything to this Weaver. They have Ancient Seal, but it's a little bit too late for that. Nana's probably going to be doing more damage than he's going to be taking, even though he's now sealed up. Zeus is way too far away for this. They're just wasting their time.
Yeah, he has 10-1 charges as well. A salve, Tangos, he's going to be healing up through this, even with the constant rest. Nana actually doesn't care. He's going to salve up as well as Shikuchi through. And yeah, it is just a lot of wasted time away from the lane from both sides. But the Weaver, he was not farming, but then again, that was 3 heroes that weren't doing anything for MVP, except for chase around a hasted bug, which really doesn't accomplish much of anything. Spectre is still farming away for the Radiant side, however, and the Tidehunter having a decent time up towards top is okay for MVP, but the bottom lane isn't going as I expected. Genysis coming out ahead in this early game.
And they might be getting a little bit more ahead. Dubu's going to be chased down now by Nana. Has Wolves blocking his way as well. The Elder Titan Spirit's going to fly through, but a time lapse is going to get Weaver back up to full HP. He's going to wander through all of these creeps, intentionally or unintentionally pulling them off. But either way, Lycan contributing to that bottom lane fight and killing off yet another hero. Now Scarith Mage. But actually, that's only his first death. That's kind of surprising given how many times he's been in areas and has just been useless. You would expect him to be dying a little bit more, but I guess that's really good for MVP. Still, the situation is not good for them. Andy's now actually rotated down towards the bottom lane. Sunbi now has been left alone. I don't think this is necessary for the Timbersaw. He was winning the lane, so honestly, I don't really know why he left here. Maybe he just wants to kill off Zeus.
It's an okay rotation since Venge is picking up the slack up towards top and getting a little bit of farm for himself. But I think what you said is probably true. Timbersaw probably would have been better spent up towards top lane, but it's going to steal a couple of these stacked creeps, and they also bring the Dazzle down here. Could see a pretty big fight. They're going to Ravage, connects onto all three of them. The Haunt comes through, they bolt down one, and now looking for two. Andy, Timber chaining away, is going to survive for a little bit longer, but not going to save him as the Chain Lightning does finish him off. Nana trying to Shikuchi out and looking to pursue out the Spectre. One Chimney attack, not enough damage, now silenced up. Nana in a whole heap of trouble. Doesn't have the time lapse, even if he wanted. The Shikuchi falls through. Raji dropping low, is going to fall to the auto attack. Now turns for the bugs. Lycanthrope also doing quite a bit of damage, but not enough. 2 for 2, an absolute bloodbath in the Radiant jungle.
And Jubei, he has the bug on him, though he will be just fine in the end. Lycan a little bit too late to that party. Shapeshifting does take a little bit more time to kick in now, so he was unable to do really much of anything there. Timbersaw, that's the type of area, that's the type of position where Timbersaw really wants to play. But unfortunately, that Ravage was just so perfect. He wandered into that good Ravage. Like, he didn't even have to try for it. He just walked right in and got it off. So that and the Spectre ultimate as well doing quite a bit of damage. Spectre is still going to be the hardest part of MVP's game. How do we deal with the Spectre? How do we deal with the Weaver? How do we burst the Weaver down? But if they somehow manage to get that kill, then it's all going to be worth it in the end. We can see the rest of the heroes from Genysis just crumbling under the extra damage of the Elder Titan, plus, of course, Ravage and Haunt also do quite a bit, just in and of themselves.
Then again, Spectre also died in that engagement, so I'm not sure if it's a clean victory for MVP, and it really isn't, although that fight started out really well. If Spectre is able to survive through that, I think it's, I don't know, nothing but wins for them. They'll TP Vexus down towards bottom. Pretty surprisingly, not exactly sure what's going on there. The dive onto Zeus, it appears, as Nana is pursuing him solo. TP attempt coming out from Jubei. It looks like Jubei's going to survive. The Lycanthrope wasn't anywhere close, and we'll put a little bit of pressure onto this tier 1 tower and maybe even take it. But a very awkward TP.
Yeah, it's gonna maybe take this tower in the end. I think that will justify the TP. Not really sure if that was the plan of Genysis all along, but if it does work out like this, then they're going to be pretty happy about it. Lycan not too healthy. He doesn't have his wolves up, nor does he have the Howl up, but they will take this tower anyway just because Lycan does a ridiculous amount of damage just by himself. They could also go for a little bit more now that they do have some wolves, they do have some Howl. They will be fighting into a Ravage, which is going to soon to be up in 10 seconds. In fact, it will be available. So Genysis maybe not going to want to risk that. I think it's better if they go down towards mid. At the very least, pressure Raji and make sure the Spectre doesn't get a whole bunch of farm.
Yeah, fair enough. Right now, the ultimates are off of cooldown for MVP, and they have the Zeus ulti as well for this next fight. Zeus has been getting quite a bit of farm down in the bottom lane. And it's just going to be a soul ring for him. He's gone for some nice gold efficient mana sustain. And when you have the levels to back it up, this Zeus is going to be doing quite a bit of work, especially with the Elder Titan aura to back it up.
Top lane though, Andy looking for blood potentially onto Nuts. Don't think this was spotted, although Nuts is playing like he was aware of it, so he's going to be fine. But yeah, this Zeus, he's going to be doing a lot of damage. The only concern is actually keeping the Zeus alive. He's going to get guaranteed his Lightning Bolt, or probably guaranteed, his Lightning Bolt and Thunder God's Wrath and Arc Lightning. Whether or not he's going to live for another cast of Thunderbolt, I think, is the question. Just because Genysis have so much damage versus such a squishy hero, they will be able to kill him off in a hurry. Speaking of killing off in a hurry, Elder Titan gets jumped and he will go down. And, well, there's not much you could do about that except for not be there. And Elder Titan really just wants to be there for a couple more levels and stuff like that. So it's going to be yet another kill for Genysis, now leading 4 over MVP.
Yeah, those face boots on the Vengeful Spirit, setting up for that. Not the boots of choice that you usually see on the bench, but Quadruple A was trucking, and it looks like they didn't expect it either. Timber Chain Whirling Death, a huge amount of burst. As soon as that magic missile hit, it was pretty much an ensured kill.
And Elder Titan, he's pretty fast, assuming he has some spirit movement speed, but can't really get yourself out from under that situation. So Genysis, they're still doing well pretty much on all of their fronts. The Lycan is getting quite a bit of farm. He got the tower down towards bottom, and MVP, it looks like they're just kind of scrambling for answers. Andy is going to spot out going towards the mid lane, but this is not a fight that Titan really wants to take. Whirling Death through, and he's going to miss with some of his skills, but that's fine because he's not in any danger right now. Both him and the Weaver will be able to just run circles around MVP, and they have a Scarith Mage who's now level 4. He really needs to get to that level 7 ASAP just because he needs the Mystic Flare. He needs maxed out Ancient Seal.
He really does. Without that silence, it's going to be really difficult for them to kill one, let alone both of them. And he only has one Ancient Seal to throw out. If Timbersaw gets locked down, Weaver is going to be running pretty free throughout the fight. And right now it looks like Weaver is going to be rushing towards a BKB. And once he has that, it doesn't really matter what MVP throw at this Weaver. He's not going to fall pretty much ever. Timbersaw is going to probably eat an Ancient Seal or two, but that doesn't matter as much. They are going to cancel a TP on Jubi, who's trying to scout out the Roshan pit. Honestly, if they were doing it, you're not living there, so not exactly sure what the plan was. Maybe he could have bolted that safely. Either way, inside the river, they're also fighting as Titan's trying to walk into the pit. He has Ravage, but he's going to get missiled down, now being munched down by the Wolf. Sunbeam dropping low, he won't be able to get the Ravage. He gets crit down. They also lose the Scarith Mage in the meantime, and Weaver's joining the party. Timbersaw going to Whirling Death. Chakram doesn't actually hit, but it doesn't matter either, as Genysis clean house. 4-0 and a Rose. Spectre the only survivor because she was nowhere close.
Well, if MVP are going to be playing like this, then they might as well just tap out right now. The Zeus wandering into that Roshan pit, as you said, the best case scenario is you find out where they are, but like you're not going to escape that. Lycan is going to just completely crush you. You could assume that the Weaver is going to be there. You could assume that the Venge is going to be there for the minus armor. Zeus had no way of escaping that one. Tidehunter just walked in, couldn't get anything done, got stunned up immediately and couldn't get his Ravage out or decided not to. He had opportunity for a 2-man Ravage, I think, but he decided not to take it. So Genysis, they get the Aegis, they take 2 towers, they take a massive team fight. This gold advantage is going to be spiking so hard in their direction, and it already is. Plus 5k at the very least for both golden experience. And with the type of heroes that they have, they could ride this all the way into tier 2s. Or just more kills if they're going in for Dubu. He's going to try TP out. Good luck doing that. He's going to be brought down in a hurry. This Weaver will have his BKB soon, but man, after that fight, you really don't want to be going for a BKB. Regardless, it will be an item that is up for Genysis, and as you said, there is no response BKB on the MVP side.
Maybe even Nana decides to get a Desolator out of that Mythril Hammer that he's already purchased up, and then finish up the BKB later. After such a commanding teamfight win, and with the lack of lockdown that MVP have, maybe he can afford to do that, although it is pretty darn greedy.
I think that would actually be a pretty decent idea. Lincoln Sphere wouldn't be terrible either for him, just because he has to worry about the seal, and that's about it. And even if he could block a bolt, that's going to be worthwhile. So it's probably not going to be the case since already does have the workings of BKB, but whatever item this Weaver decides to go for, I think after that fight, after you get that much extra gold and that much extra advantage, you should be going for damage, just trying to kill off the enemies that much faster and keeping them down as far as, well, killing them off before they get anything going. There's a blink dagger on the Tidehunter now, and Spectre's still farming decently, so MVP, they're not out of it just yet, but they just have to not make those terrible plays if they really want to come back into this game.
And Roger cannot die at all. He's saving up for that Radiance, and that's pretty much the only item he can go for to really get them back into this game, but I don't know, Raji just needs more time, and I'm not sure if MVP are really primed to give him that time. I think the BKB is the right choice as far as defensive items on the Weaver, but yeah, I suppose enough about that. Genysis are also getting a decent amount on their other heroes. We're well on our way towards that Bloodstone on Andy as well. And Vexus is also sitting on quite a large lump sum of gold. Might just be a straight up Necronomicon for him, but no matter what Vexus decides, it's going to be done soon. 2 minutes on the Aegis still remaining. They should be able to push into a tier 2 tower in that time.
At the very least, try to force out a Ravage from MVP to trade the Aegis away for something. They're going to be split pushing on pretty much all fronts, and Vexus looking for blood up towards top, whereas the rest of the team down towards bottom. This is probably the weakest way that Genysis can approach this, as Sunbee is going to have an opportunity for a Blink Ravage. But if they get both these towers, then I think it's fine. I don't really know if that's going to happen, though. They have Elder Titan to defend the top lane, and he's a decent defender up against the extra units of the Lycan especially. So Genysis, they're definitely not going to get bottom being up against 4, and they're actually going to find an opening on Nuts, swapping him back, Magic Missile, and he'll be torn to shreds by the Wolves. So they will get 1 tower at the very least. Still Aegis value is in question, but if MVP just sit on this bottom lane all day, then, well, they're just going to outright lose. The Tidehunter's in a fantastic position, though. So maybe they get a team fight, but they have to burst down this Weaver, and there it is. Blink Ravage, going to connect onto the Mystic Flare, not going to be in time. The Grave Nana's going to be guaranteed a time lapse out of this one, and he will get that one out. it's going to be Brian to take the most damage, but Raji can take even more due to the whirling death through, and well, Spectre's going to survive for a little while longer. Timberchain will get the kill. Now Nana still in the area, still at pretty much full HP, is going to charge forward for the Skywrath Mage. It looks like this will be a kill as well, although Bolt and Stomp going to zone him out. The Tidehunter did chase down and kill off that Dazzle as Nana still dropping pretty low. Going to dodge an Earth Splitter, dodge a Sentry, dodge a Lightning Bolt. The Shikuchi away. He's going to try to hide in the trees for some darn reason. Just got to run away at that point, Nana. He will once again live. 17 HP. Gush not available. Weaver's now going to try to hide TP. And Sunbi, unless he blinks right now, no, it's not going to happen. They get away with the Weaver. Not really sure what Vexus and A were doing all the while. They could have been pressuring high ground the entire time. I think they even had enough time for a tier 3.
They probably did. I don't know, after that tier 2 tower they fell back, but I don't know, with the entire enemy team fighting down in bottom, and some of them even dying, I'm not exactly sure what the plan was, especially with the Aegis on Vexus. It is going to expire naturally now, and he'll put some pressure into the tier 2, and they still take the structure up towards top. But that did feel unnecessary. If you are going for the split push game, go for the split push game. If you're going to commit to the fight, I think you bring all forces down towards bottom.
Yeah, so it didn't really work out that well for Genysis, but they're still so far ahead in this game that they're going to be pretty okay with it. Raji got killed off in that fight, and now he's that much further away from his relics. Still, it's not that far away, but it's approaching 20 minutes, and by that time you want to have your Radiance completed, and you're even starting to work on another item. With double BKBs now up on Genysis, the fight that MVP took is definitely not going to be replicated, especially if Genysis actually have all of their heroes down there, so this is looking pretty grim for MVP. Ravage going to be up in 40 seconds, but it won't be in time to defend this tier 2 tower. This one is going to be going down in a hurry. Even though Lycan is still split pushing, I really don't like this from Genysis. Like, you either go split push and you try to pressure people back to their base in order to defend tier 3s, or you just go out and kill tier 2 towers. And right now they're kind of doing neither. I guess the tier 2 tower was free pickings anyway, but still, I don't really like how Genysis are approaching this.
Yeah, especially with the BKB on the Lycanthrope. That's kind of tailored for them to fight. They'll get the tier 2 tower regardless, and I don't think it's going to hurt them now, but if they split push when Ravage is up, they could be punished pretty heavily if they don't have everybody there. Lycanthrope does a whole heap of damage inside the fight when he's shapeshifted as well as BKB'd.
Well, Genysis are going to grab that tower, and now they're going to go towards the mid lane. Now, this is the split push that I would like to see from them. Go for the mid lane tier 2 while having the Lycan try to go for top lane tier 3. He's not going to die. He has a BKB. You're probably not going to lose the fight in the mid lane either, assuming you actually get a Shallow Grave off. And well, Shallow Grave is maxed out. The range is pretty huge. It will be guaranteed to be casted. So this is going to be the play for Genysis. This is going to be pretty much a mirror game of game number 1 as far as the tower situation is concerned. The Radiant side just not having a good time in these games.
Nope, Timbersaw out with the completed Bloodstone and 2,000 gold on top of it. MVP in that last fight, it was crucial that Zeus got off so many of his spells. He was able to throw multiple bolts out. But if BKBs come out for all the cores of Genysis, MVP don't really have much of an answer to that. Even when Spectre gets her Radiance, BKB trumps that haunt. The Desolate as well as Radiance burn damage is what you rely on to actually take down heroes.
And he still doesn't have that one. It's going to be so concerning. They see Sunbi down towards the bottom lane. Actually, no, it's still nighttime. It just hit nighttime, so the Tidehunter's fine. But now all the outer towers are down for the MVP side. They have also a Lycan Invis to worry about, though they don't really know about it just yet. I don't really know where this courier is going.
It's the secret shop for the relic. This is super secret mission.
Like, Force Staff, Jubei is not in that direction, so he's going to jump in, snatch it, and then book it back to the base. So relic secured, and now is going to, hopefully for MVP, begin their comeback. It's unfortunately not going to start with the kill on the Timbersaw. He gets up to the high ground just in time, but Genysis, they don't have an Aegis, so maybe they're going to wait for that one. It's going to be another minute or so until the Roshan is back up. Once that happens, Ravage and Zeus, they have a lot of work cut out for them.
They really do. And a lot of that work's going to rely on the enemy team not getting off their BKBs for some form of or for some reason. I'm not exactly sure what their reason is. They don't have the greatest ways to actually lock them down or stop them from popping it, unless they get like the perfect jump from Tidehunter, and they'll need to burst them down inside the Ravage. Not exactly sure if that's possible. Earth Splitter might also be pretty crucial to that team fight, if it actually comes out at all. Sunbi sitting on 3,000 gold. The Tidehunter, I'd like to see him spend that for something. Maybe a Force Staff would be warranted, but he could also have something else in mind. Roshan's going to have a pretty short respawn at 25 seconds.
And once that is up, Genysis, I'm sure, will just back off and annihilate Roshan. They have Lycan, who could pretty much do it by himself, and with any sort of minus armor help from the Vengeful Spirit, they'll be able to take him down that much faster. But first, they'll take Nuts. Literally two-shot after Magic Missile Wave of Terror. So, yeah, that definitely happened. Now they're going to go for the high ground and try to force someone. It's going to be Andy in the meantime, mid lane, just trying to distract the enemies. He's going to draw out Thunder God's Wrath, and he will live from that one. Andy's going to regenerate up pretty darn quickly. In the meantime, top lane, tier 3 tower, going to fall. Someone has got to get up here, and it can't be just Sunbi. He's going to jump in for an Anchor Smash, going to maybe force Vexus out. I don't think Vexus should be that scared right now. Has a BKB. But still, that's going to be a huge loss for MVP as they lose a tier 3 tower for absolutely nothing in exchange. Timbersaw, just with natural Bloodstone regen, is all the way back up to half HP. They're going to try to defend the bot lane, which is probably the lane that they have a better shot at defending. But killing off this Weaver with these heroes right now is just not possible unless they land an Echo Stomp. And that is also not going to be happening. Vexus is going to be going right back into the base, and this time he's dueling up against Sunbi, this time without backup. I don't really know what the plan is here. Still, he's fine doing so because he has a BKB. He doesn't really want to pop it right now, but it's getting kind of dangerous for him. Echo Stomp landing, unfortunately woken up by something, and now he's going to try to TP out. Will be just fine. That was the worst Genysis could have possibly done there with that Lycan, but still, they're so far ahead, it doesn't even matter.
No, it really doesn't. Roshan's back up even though they don't know it yet. The damage that was put onto the Rax is going to be regenerated up since he was focusing down the melee barracks. They ping out Roshan, and honestly that should be what they take, but they could probably just stay exactly where they are and let Lycan solo that. Nana pushing down bottom, Timbersaw pushing down mid. Venge can be in a little bit of trouble if she keeps on pushing top too aggressively. But then again, I think it's warranted. There's your Radiance completed for MVP, so maybe there's a hope of a one-team fight. But with a double life on somebody, whether that be Weaver or the Lycanthrope, not sure it matters much. It's going to be incredibly scary.
Alright, so there's going to be an Aegis on the Genysis side, and the Spectre is pretty much online once she gets her Radiance. You want to have a health item, you want to have maybe like a Manta style to be really comfortable with your situation. You compare her net worth to the rest of the Genysis side, and well, it's I think the numbers kind of speak for themselves. There's 3 core heroes in Genysis with 5 digits of value, and Spectre only has 4. And you know, even if she accelerates her farm twofold, it's just not going to be enough to keep up with Genysis. So this Radiance is going to have to make some serious work happen inside a team fight. They have to burst down people with their ultimate combos. But Genysis, they're just not letting that happen. They're split pushing, which is extremely slow. Now with the Desolator, it'll be a little bit faster, but they're going to completely avoid giving MVP any sort of chance for a value Ravage. And even though it is not working out the cleanest for them, it's still pretty decent. They're like trying to go for Andy, but they just can't kill off this Timbersaw without this Scarith Mage Flare. Or they could burst him down, never mind. Spectre Radiance getting some value there. Unfortunately, Zeus uses his ultimate, didn't cancel it in time. They get the kill on the Timbersaw. He's only down for 20 seconds, though.
Yeah, with the Bloodstone, that is the benefit of that item, or one of the benefits of that item. I'm not sure if Timbersaw actually got a Bloodstone charge after picking up the stone, and if he did, it would have only been 1, so, yeah, actually he didn't. He's sitting on 5 right now, so Timbersaw isn't the happiest of Timbers, and honestly I wasn't expecting him to die there, but Desolate does do quite a heap of damage. They're going for Vexus up towards top, but then again they have to deal with bottom. Poor Juvie, stuck out by between way too many heroes. The Spectre Haunt comes through, they Ravage onto 4th, the damage from the Radiance Burn is significant, and they will bring Dazzle down first. No Graves in this fight. Andy as well as Quadruple A will be able to make it towards the north of this fight as Weaver pursues the backlines. Raji will be able to TP out to safety, and Nana had the Aegis, so it wouldn't have even mattered if he'd fallen. Timbersaw fitting with his Chakram, but in the meantime the barracks up on top are in full reach. Vex is going to get them. BKB TP is going to be successful, and although it's the sloppy fight, it is a sloppy fight from Genysis, it works out. They take the structure.
It's a messy fight from both sides. That Mystic Flare after a Ravage completely whiffed. I don't know how you whiff a Mystic Flare after a Ravage since everyone's stunned for like a million years, but it happened anyway, and it let them only get 1 kill on Dazzle. It is nice to kill off the mech holder, and he has the most sustain on the Genysis side, but you have to worry about different heroes, and they also take the Raxes up towards top, and they force out MVP's fortification because they just completely botched it. So it's just terrible fights on either side. It's just not the cleanest Dota in the world. But you know what? Genysis are going to be now in a pretty commanding lead, even more so than they already were, given that Raxes are down in their favor. The Spectre she did a little bit. She now has a Yasha up out of nowhere, so Raji, his farm is starting to accelerate in quite a big way, but once again, it's just not accelerating fast enough when you compare it to what Genysis had. Now an Assault Cuirass and Lycan plus a Desolator on Weaver. The minus armor for them is going to be huge.
It is, and there's not really much MVP can do as far as physical damage is concerned, and their magic damage is also going to be mitigated very heavily now that the pipe is being worked on by Quadruple A, and it's going to have that very soon. Hood of Defiance is already completed up, and Genysis are about to have 3 VKBs on all of their cores, and pretty long duration ones at that. Andy almost has enough gold to where he can complete that just a couple hundred shy, and Lycanthrope's only used it twice, both defensively, but still 8 seconds of match community is more than enough for him to take a barracks or kill 2 to 3 heroes. 4 staff into magic missile. They have Sunbeak locked down, and with the Lycanthrope running after them as well as the swap, they should be able to bring him down. My goodness, that damage. They'll run even further into the enemy base as Jubei is being pursued. Nuts getting chunked down by this wolf. Ghost Step just going to save his life, however. He goes for the ranged barracks instead. Meantime, the Spectre dies to the might of Dazzle, or Weaver and Timbersaw. And it's just going to be wins around the map. That's a full lane up towards top and bottom lane, soon to be under a lot of pressure.
One lane completely down, bottom lane taking quite a bit of damage as well. Nana's Desolator getting some serious work done there. Andy's BKB used because he thought he was in stomp range, although I don't think he was. It's not going to matter. Genysis, these fights have just been absolutely terrible. There are so many misplays in this game, but they have, I guess, fewer misplays than MVP. They have now the Timbersaw zoning everyone out. Stomp is going to land onto the Vengeful Spirit. It's only level 1 skill, I believe, and now a swap back onto Nuts. Magic Missile up. A might be going down here, but it's a small price to pay for 2 sets of Raxes. Actually, no, 3 sets of Raxes. Vexus has already broken down mid lane. This game is over.
Yeah, not much of a hope of a comeback. They have a Refresher Ravage, but what does that actually matter? He'll be able to get it off, and that's about it. That's Mega Creeps. They are going to drop 1 Ravage onto just the Aegis of the Weaver, however. He refreshes, looking for the second one. Can even find his BKB on Vexus, means that's a no. They're looking for the last hurrah, but with BKBs popped on all of these cores, can they even bring down a single one? Somebody going to be focused. 1 Gemini attack. He drops the second Ravage, connects onto 3, but it doesn't actually matter. GG's called. It's going to be a triple kill for Nana, and looking to make it more ultra kill and rampage for Nana, and a Wicked 6 spree to boot. Genysis going to tie the series up 1-1.
Alright, that means that it's the best of 3. We're going to be going to a third and final game. I just hope that the game is a lot cleaner than this one, because this one just had so many mistakes from both sides, and when you have that, you don't really want to be watching Dota where it's a game of who makes fewer mistakes.
Fair enough. Well, we'll just have to see if either team are able to tighten things up and make it a little bit closer. Either way, we'll be coming back very shortly. I'm HeflaTV, been joined by Mike Loris.